What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of my hip hop review. This is gonna be somewhat of like a double review. I was not originally going to do this, but after like gathering what I have to say for both albums I'm about to review, I didn't really get as much information that can last. I felt like, to put it bluntly, I can still make two videos with it because a lot of information is just pretty straightforward information. And the album I'm gonna review tonight. Sorry about that. The album I'm gonna do tonight are Ice-T's The Rhyme Page Joint. Excuse me. And his second album, Power. Both released in 1987 and 1988 respectively on Sire under Warner Brothers Records. It's been a long time. I know I said I'm gonna do like some West Coast artists. And yeah, I'm definitely gonna start doing some West Coast, And it's not just gonna be like the traditional West Coast, like y'all hear like NWA. I already reviewed all of Tupac's albums. I'm gonna talk about Snoop, but not right now. Like I'm gonna talk about Ice-T, Too Short, Quid, Delta Funky Homo Sapien, Dub C, The Mad Circle. It's gonna be scattered throughout. So yeah, so I'm gonna begin with Ice-T. He's really not a rapper that I don't see him get a lot of praise for, but he is definitely one of the most important rappers in my opinion. Like, for the fact that this rapper was speaking out against freedom of speech, fighting for certain hip hop acts to be on the fucking radio and stuff like that. A lot of people want to say that he created gangster rap, but you also got to give credit to like Schoolie D and Just Ice and stuff like that. And I'm going to talk some more about Just Ice sometime in the future, so stay tuned more on that. But Ice-T was really the one that put the stamp on it, in my personal opinion. And I'm going to talk more about that throughout the whole album. But at the same time, he does get his flack too. He gets his flack, because how people don't really like his rapping style, and shit like that. And I always saw his rapping style. It was not the best, but at the time it was original and shit like that. But I'm getting way ahead of myself, so let me really discuss who Ice-T is. Ice-T, he's an MC originally born in Newark, New Jersey. He was originally born in Newark, New Jersey. His dad, I believe, was African American, and his mom was Creole. And so while he was a kid, he relocated to like Summit, New Jersey, and that area, he witnessed firsthand what racism was about, basically. And so while he was young, he used to get picked on because of his light skin and shit like that. And then his mom died of a heart attack while he was in 3rd grade, basically. And basically, he had gotten into, and soon after, his father had died soon after, basically. And it was then when he relocated to LA, and that's when he kind of started like a life of crime, basically, and shit like that. Cause he got into like the gang culture. Well, he was affiliated with gang culture, but his really true calling was when he started reading books from Iceberg Slim. Iceberg Slim, he's an author. He was a pimp who became like an influential author. A lot of cats, from Ice-T to Ice Cube, they cited him as like an influence and shit like that. They got their name from Iceberg Slim too, so yeah. So he also got into music at that time too. He was in a singing group and shit. But at the same time, he's caught up in the crime and shit like that. And then he got drafted in the Army. And while he was drafted in the Army, he became interested in like hip hop and shit like that. Well, he became interested in hip hop after hearing Rapper's Delight, basically. And so yeah, so after he was discharged and shit like that, he was gonna stay away from the gang culture and shit like that. And that's when he adopted the name Ice-T and he started becoming DJs at parties and shit like that. And soon the DJ it became to rapping. And then it became rapping and shit like that. But at the same time and shit, he broke up with his girl and he went back to a life of crime and he had gotten arrested. I think if I'm not mistaken, he had gotten arrested and shit like that. Well, actually, no, scratch it. I fucked up. I think one of his homeboys got arrested and he realized that shit wasn't really for him, basically. So he wanted to take music seriously. But then he got in a car accident. And shit like that. And that was really his true calling card. After he was released from the hospital, he won an open mic competition that was judged by Curtis Blow. You know. And you guys should know who Curtis Blow is. The Breaks, the guy who did the Breaks, Christmas rapping, all that shit. So, he was a figure with the underground world, and he met this producer named Willie Strong from Staten Records. And then he dropped his first single on Wax called Cold Wind Madness and shit. It was a very popular song on the underground circuit, but it was at a time very vulgar, very hardcore. And he dropped some other singles, but in 1984, he starred in the movie Breakin', which was, yeah, even Ice-T was even talking shit about that movie and shit like that. So after Breakin' and shit like that, he appeared on a sequel, and so that's when years later he had heard Schoolie D's PSK, Parkside Killers, What Does It Mean? That was dropped in '85. You know, that record right there was a synonymous record and shit like that. He loved that shit, so that's when he was influenced by Schoolie D's style. Now he wrote 6 in the Morning, which I'm gonna talk about more when I review the album. And so that song was released in '86, broke through him and shit like that. He got a record deal with Sire Records, a major deal with Sire Records, and wrong album, excuse me. That's when this album was released. Alright, so Rhyme Page. So the album came out with about 2-3 singles, 6 in the Morning, Make It Funky, and Somebody's Got to Do It. Producers include Africa Islam, who was like the originator of his sound, to say the least, and stuff like that. Yeah, man. And also this album is actually very famous too because it's the first rap album to have like a parental advisory sticker, according to sources and shit like that. I know you guys are mostly used to the little small rectangular sticker, parental advisory, explicit lyrics. But but at the same time, it was, if you look right here, it's shaped as a bullet, basically. I thought it was very creative in a way. That was kind of creative and shit. The cover includes Ice-T. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's Africa Islam on the cover. And of course, you had his girl at the time, Darlene, the forever sexy Darlene, I should say. Yeah, very, very fucking dope cover. And yeah, this cover, his first 2 covers, well, his album covers have struck in controversy and shit like that, at the time and shit like that. And I'm gonna talk more about the Power cover. So yeah. Dope cover and shit. And so do it like that. You got him in the back counting money and shit. Of course, you got the lyrics. Yeah. So yeah, I'm very excited when we talk about these 2 albums and stuff like that. So yeah, let's get this shit started. Alright, track number 1, intro. 9 songs on this album. Let's get the shit started. Track number 1, intro / Rhyme Page. It uses a Black Sabbath sample and shit like that. Very dope way to start off the album. Very dope way to start the album. Yeah. Track number 2, 6 in the Morning. Yeah, like I mentioned before, that's a very iconic track from Ice-T. It was, according to my sources, actually, that song was actually produced by the Unknown DJ. And if you guys are familiar with Compton Most Wanted, he was the producer of Compton Most Wanted, the Unknown DJ, which I always thought Africa Islam produced that track, but yeah, very, very cool song and shit. Love that song. That's really like one of the first Hustlers anthem, to be real with y'all. Like 6 in the morning, police at my door, fresh Adidas squeaking at the bathroom floor. Like that's an iconic line and shit like that, you know. And you can tell his delivery was very influenced by Schoolie D. Basically 6 in the morning, talking about how the police would arrive at his crib at 6 a.m. and he would just escape from the back window to the bathroom in the streets and shit like that, just evading the police and stuff like that, you know. Very cool track. But I'll be quite honest with y'all. I respect the history of the song, but it's not really like one of my favorite Ice-T tracks and shit like that. And it's not like my favorite song as opposed to like the other people and stuff. So track number 3, Make It Funky. Yeah, that's a very straight track and shit like that. Make It Funky, the thing is basically just paying homage to like the beats and like the speakers and song, the speakers and shit like that, the California vibe and shit. That's what I got from Make It Funky. Next track, Somebody's Got to Do It, Pimpin' Ain't Easy. That song right there, that's another dope track. What I got from that song was talking about how he said he has to find ways to make money. His lifestyle's crazy, you know, bringing that pimp lifestyle to the forefront. Like, yeah, Too Short really made that shit popular, but Ice-T was really the one that was one of the first ones to talk about the pimp lifestyle and shit. So, and I'm definitely gonna talk about Born to Max very soon. Stay tuned on that. And I love the James Brown sample that was sprinkled throughout this whole song and shit. So that's Somebody Gotta Do It, Pimpin' Ain't Easy. Track number 6, 409. In my opinion, that's my favorite song off the album. But it was kind of a song where I was a bit confused about, in a way. And the reason why I was a little confused because I didn't really know what 419 was at the time and shit. And basically 419, it's like a metaphorical track. Cause I thought it was supposed to mean like an area code, but it's supposed to talk about like a cleaner, the little cleaner shit, if I'm not mistaken. And so even the earlier lines when he's like, it's time to start the party if y'all don't mind. Me and E clean our Adidas with 409. He rocked the highs, I dog the bass. You want to hear those rock, here's your taste. So basically just cleaning up the bullshit, basically. That's what I got from that song and shit. Yeah, that's a very cool track. My favorite song off the album, that beat where he used that Commodore sample was very unique and shit. Okay, track number 6, I Love Ladies. It was on some real shit. It's kind of corny on some real shit, which I'm gonna talk more about that once the album's done. Self-explanatory, talking about his love for the ladies and shit. Yeah. Track number 8, Sex. Yeah, another song I could have done without. Just him saying, "Oh, baby, baby, baby." I was just kind of done with that bullshit, you know. But I do like this one slightly better than I Love Ladies and shit. But yeah, that's a very okay track, you know. Then we get to fucking Pain, which that shit right there is fucking dope. That's a fucking dope song. I love the fucking beat to that. The beat's very dark. Yeah, that's a very cool track. He was just going in on the mic. And the last track off the OG version of the album, Squeeze the Trigger, which that was a very good song, but I felt like it was a bit too long. What I got from that song was how, at the time in the late 80s, you know, hip hop was getting popular, but it was still struggling to find radio airplay. And hold on, I'm sorry. And you know, with the fact that excuse me, you know, with the fact of the late 80s, Ice-T was speaking out about that, you know, because, you know, he was a huge fan of Public Enemy. And, you know, Public Enemy, you guys should know the deal with them. You know, they didn't even get that much airplay and shit like that because of the content. And he was fighting for certain artists like Public Enemy and Boogie Down Productions and shit. Because, yeah, and that's one thing about Ice-T I've always respected about him and shit like that. He was like speaking out against like certain East Coast acts, like especially conscious hip hop and stuff, because even though he was raised in the West Coast, he still got that East Coast vibe, and like you see him, you know, taking pictures of him with cats like Kane and Chuck D and so on and so on. And that's always one thing I've always respected Ice-T for, especially around that time too. So yeah, Squeeze the Trigger, while it is a very unique song, I feel like if it was scaled to maybe about 4 minutes, it could have been like a better track, but I feel like 6 minutes was a bit too long. But yeah, my overall verdict on this album, it's an okay album. A lot of people want to call this album a classic album, which I'm not going to argue. If people call certain albums a classic album, I'm not going to argue with it. But my personal opinion is this, and this might sound kind of very crazy, but this was kind of like the West Coast equivalent to LL Cool J's Radio. And I've noticed, re-listening to this album recently, like songs like Make It Funky, I Love Ladies, Sex, it kind of has that early Def Jam sound, you know, screaming over the mic and shit like that. He was still trying to find his sound and shit. So I've always felt like that, and I'm not knocking this album because I like this album though, but it's not my favorite Ice-T album. I'm gonna say my thoughts on that later on, but it's one of his most important albums, and this album was actually out of print, but they re-released it in 2014. They re-released it in 2014, basically, because the difference between the OG copy and like a CD copy that was reissued back sometime in the 90s, the CD copy came with a couple of bonus tracks, like 12 inches and shit. So yeah, that's like the most known copy a lot of people are known for and shit. So the album was re-released and shit, but at the same time it's still very hard to come by. So if y'all can find a copy of Rhyme Pays, you can find a copy of like Rhyme Pays and stuff like that, cop the album and shit, because it usually goes for a lot of money. It usually goes for like a lot of money, but just know where to look. And like I said before, it's not his worst album, but at the same time, his discography in years, he gotten so much better. And 1 year later, he came out with the iconic Power album. But I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. So let me say, like, right after this album was released, he didn't waste no time. He had formed his crew called like the Rhyme Syndicate. He had formed like the Rhyme Syndicate basically. I think sometime like late 87, early 88. Like this was like his first group way before Body Count and shit. And Rhyme Syndicate, it has members like hold on, I gotta pull up all the members. Rhyme Syndicate, you know, they have people like Toddy T, Donald D, Lord Finesse, who at the time, this was like way before what's that group? The DITC days and shit like that. Way before DITC. Yeah, so like I mentioned, Donald D, Everlast, again, way before House of Pain and shit like that. He was affiliated with Rhyme Syndicate. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Dub C was also in the group too and shit. what I found pretty interesting. I never knew Dub C was affiliated with the Rhyme Syndicate, but it just shows to show you how much of an influence both Ice-T and Dub C are and shit like that when it comes to like West Coast hip hop. But like I mentioned before, I'm getting way ahead of myself. That same year as this album, they dropped the only album called The Rhyme Syndicate Coming Through, which there's a 50-50 chance I might talk about that album. 50-50 chance. If I do, it might be like, because I'm already going to talk about Donald D's album and the first Everlast album, but I'm going to go through what I have to go through and shit. So, yeah, and then after the release of Rhyme Pays, he was featured on the soundtrack of Colors and stuff. Very grimy movie. You know, that movie was a first-hand experience on like the LA, the gangs in LA and shit like that, the Bloods and the Crips. And so with the soundtrack of Colors, you know, which was I heard some of the soundtrack. It has a song called, of course, the self-titled song Colors. One of my all-time favorite Ice-T songs, in my personal opinion. Like, that song right there was what made me a fan of Ice-T. Originally, they were going to use one of his older songs, which I think was Squeeze the Trigger, for the movie and stuff like that, but Ice-T said he can make a new song and stuff like that, and of course, Colors came out to be one of his signature songs, and that's another song I don't hear like a lot of Ice-T fans talk about, like, oh my god, man, like, fucking Colors, man. I just want to listen to that song. Right, I haven't heard that song in years though, but yeah. So right after all that shit, you know, he recorded this album and he was using the SP1200, but some songs had like the TB303 bass synthesizer. So yeah, very dope album. Fuck it, you guys should know how much I like this album, but I'm gonna say fuck it. But yeah, now the album cover, very ballsy album cover right here. Features Ice-T. It features, if I'm not mistaken, Afrika Islam. No, wait, no. It's Afrika Islam. Yeah. It features Afrika Islam and it features Darlene and shit. As you can see right here, see Ice-T dressed in all blue and shit. Darlene looking as sexy as ever. All with the bathing suit with the gun and shit. Yeah, this is a very, very iconic cover and shit like that. And there's also an article from Darlene on Hip Hop DX, which if I find it, I'm gonna post a link. She was just talking about, like, you know, her thoughts around that time and stuff like that, what she's doing now. Yeah. And like I said before, you know, I always found her sexier than Coco, in my opinion. I'm glad everyone's finding love, but yeah. And so, yeah, you know, the cover struck like a lot of controversy and shit like that. Yeah. So yeah, let me oh damn. Okay. And like I mentioned before, all the lyrics and shit. So yeah, that's one thing I love about hip hop albums back in the day. So yeah, fuck that. Okay, so singles albums known for are, it came up with 2 singles, I'm Your Pusher and High Rollers. So 13 tracks, y'all know what I'm about to do. Track number 1, Intro. Much darker intro than Rhyme Pays. You can tell like how it was more focused and shit like that. Very dope track. You know, he was just dedicated to the Rhyme Syndicate. You know, yeah, fuck it. Just, you know, yeah, just what to expect from this album. Track number 2, Power. Fucking dope song, nice way to start off the fucking album. My personal opinion, that song it's kind of resembling Somebody's Got to Do It, Pimpin' Ain't Easy, but it's more refined, more better in that case and shit like that. And yeah, very dope track. I love the line where he says, I'm outspoken, no joking, get in my face, your jaw will get broken. Laying it, saying it, then you're playing it. Lyrics so heavy that you might try weighing it. Hated by many, but I hate them back. Like, yeah, like I say, I'm gonna talk more about the rapping and all that shit right after I talk about the album and shit. So yeah, but that's what I have to say about Power. Very good, very dope track. Next song, Drama. Again, another dope track. Again, Drama is a dope song where he's on his storytelling. He's on his storytelling shit. He's talking about like this young cat. He's talking about how this young cat is kind of caught in like the underground world, and just talk about what he goes through on a daily, his consequences he goes through on a daily and shit like that. Yeah, very dope track right there. Kind of like gritty kind of tale, and I feel like with this album, it's a lot more gritty and darkier. I was about to say darkier. What the fuck is wrong with me today? A lot more grittier than like fucking Ryan Pays and shit. So yeah, very dope. Track number 4, Heartbeat. Love that song. He's just on his battle rap kind of vibe with that song and shit like that. The beat has definitely a blaxploitation kind of feel. For some odd reason, I can definitely see Big Daddy Kane on this beat for some odd reason. Because if you guys, it kind of has a little bit of that It's the Big Daddy thing kind of vibe, but a lot more grittier and shit. So then we got the Syndicate posse cut, with Donald D and Head G. That's a very cool track and shit. He's putting his boys on. Yeah, Syndicate, dope track. I love the beat. Yeah. Who had the best verse? I would have to say Donald. I might have to say like Donald D did his thing on that shit. Then we got Radio Suckers. Again, continuing him going after the radio for not playing his music on the air and stuff like that. Very cool song and shit like that. Track number 7, I'm Your Pusher. Yeah, that's one of his breakthrough songs where it's kind of a song where he's talking about the crack epidemic, but metaphorically he's metaphoring like selling drugs as like selling hip hop, like LPs and shit. It uses the Curtis Mayfield sample, the Pusher Man sample, yeah. Use that sample. That song was actually infamous for starting the beef with LL Cool J because at like the second half of the song, you get to like him trying to sell goods, like sell rappers, sell rappers as like drugs. Like he said, he'll cop the Dougie Fresh, he'll cop the BDP, but when he's trying to offer the LL Cool J, he don't want none of that shit. And so that's how LL kind of went after him with To the Break of Dawn, dope diss track from the Mama Said Knock You Out album, which I've done a review on way back. Well, not way back, but a couple months ago. So yeah, that is Radio. I'm Your Pusher. Yeah, that's a very dope track. Love the message with that track. Then we get to Personal, which again, that was like another kind of battle kind of song and shit like that. He was going in on the mic. The beat definitely had that rock feel, like a rock feel towards it and shit. So yeah, I love that track. Track number 9, Girls, LGB, and AF. In other words, girls, let's get butt naked and fuck. This song was kind of like a satire of the hip-hop love songs at the time. Yeah, but he wanted to add his own twist. Like, he wants to give like a sex song, basically. So, yeah, pretty funny track and shit. If you know what you're going to get into with that. Then we get to one of my second favorite song, High Rollers. Oh man, High Rollers. That's that song is in my opinion, one of the most important songs in his discography. One of the songs that really put him out there is talking about how one gets sucked into like the thug life or the hustle lifestyle and shit, and all of a sudden, it's not. He's trying to say it's not all that's cracked up to be, basically. Because you might feel like you're unstoppable now, but when next thing you know, somebody's gonna stop you and kill you and shit. So, yeah. And the song was pretty interesting too, because even though it ran for about it was like 4 minutes and 36 seconds, it has about 5 verses and shit. And at that time, the standard hip hop song usually runs for about 3 verses, but for you to go like 5 verses and shit, that just shows you how you like seriously you take your shit, your craft and stuff. So also the video almost got banned on MTV because of the fact that they were using real guns on the video and shit. So yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, track number 11, Grand Larceny. Love that track. What he's doing, he's kind of like comparing the crime of grand larceny to he's comparing this grand larceny to basically stealing the show, like stealing a live show, basically. That's one thing I like about that track. Kind of original and shit. Kind of a better metaphorical track than 4 and 9, which was like my favorite track on Ron Page, but shit happens. Next track, Soul on Ice. Believe it or not, this is my favorite track on the album. He kind of goes for like a more spoken word kind of feel to it, where he's talking to the audience and shit, paying homage to Iceberg Slim in a way. Just like the way he's describing the lyrics, like, it was a Saturday night on the streets of Cali. Threw one of my dope silk suit, brushed off my suede ballies, threw one enough gold for any girl's pleasure. Left a pound and a half of that shit still in the dresser. Like, you can just fucking picture that shit. Especially when he's like imitating the voice, like, yo, what's up, Ice? You rich now, man? You too good to speak. Like, now Jazz was a player from the East Coast, like, and you get really sucked in to the story, which is one thing I loved about Soul on Ice. By the way, I know it's kind of off topic, but read the book Soul on Ice by Eldridge Cleaver. Very controversial book. It's not a book for everybody, but yeah, that's just one thing I just have to say. We don't only entertain, but we educate at the same time. And the last track off the album, which is like the outro, self-explanatory, basically it kind of like falls back to what the intro was, how everyone's talking about how dope the album was, Power was everything. And yeah, man, this album, Power, man, very good album. Love this album to death. Definitely, if I was to pick like a top 20 gangsta rap albums, this would be somewhere between 20 to 15 at least, man. Album is so fucking dope. The production was like a lot more focused. One thing I loved about this album, the concepts that he was picking, the song ideas were a lot more better, a lot more original and shit. Small gripe though. Now, Ice-T's flow, rapping, in my opinion, that didn't really get a lot more better until it got to OG Original Gangster, but he was trying with it. He kept trying, like, consistently he was doing good with each album. So, yeah, like I said, he's not like one of the best lyricists, but when it comes to style and originality, definitely put him out there and shit, yeah, man, like, and it's crazy too, because you don't really hear a lot of people talk about this album. Like, when it comes to Ice-T, it's like they mostly talk about the OG Original Gangster album, which, again, classic album. But they'll talk about this album to an extent, but it will be like Ron Pays because of the song 6 in the Morning. This album, mostly because of the album cover, mostly. And OG Original Gangster, which niggas love that album to death. Of course I do and shit, but this nigga has a lot of heat, even after OG Original Gangster. So yeah, the album is still in print. I think it was recently released in 2014. So if you can find this album, you must have in your collection. So yeah, and that's all the time I have. Thank you guys so much for bearing with me with this long ass review. I'm gonna start really doing more double reviews and shit like that, but not frequently, because like as many albums I want to get done at a specific time and shit like that, you know. So as usual, this is your boy Reg. Peace.